Hey everybody, just want to remind you to support Project YM and your favorite YouTube channel, The Popish Plot,
and save yourself 10% off your favorite Catholic Balm Co. products
by shopping at Catholic Balm Co., that is catholicbalm.co, and using the code PLOT2021 at your checkout to get that 10% off. Now on with the show. Welcome to The Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
Today we are here to discuss a viewer-requested saint.
Yes.
We are talking about someone who is very near and dear to our heart, because this show is called The Popish Plot. It's named after a group of English martyrs, and today we're talking about an English martyr. Today we're talking about St. Margaret Clitherow, the Pearl of York.
Yes.
So who was St. Margaret Clitherow?
Well, first I learned that her maiden name is Middleton, but the internet would not let me know if there was like a long chain thing to retake over, and once William's in charge, a family member is in.
Yep. We're presuming she's a relative of the Duchess of Cambridge.
Yeah, I mean,
and nothing
way back,
and nothing will dissuade us from that.
That's right.
I mean, it isn't like a rare name, but still, we'll just assume so.
You can't prove we're wrong.
Nope.
And if you can, comment below.
Yeah, if you can prove us wrong, please always comment below.
Anyway, she was born sometime in 1556.
Nice.
Okay.
And then she died on March 25th in 1586.
That doesn't seem like a very long life.
No, she was at most 30, depending on what
time of year.
Yeah. And her feast day is August 30th.
It's a good one.
I mean, as you can probably tell from the date she died, she's not getting that one as a feast day.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some better feast days, I suppose, but
Well, I believe she's one of the 40 martyrs of England and Wales.
Yes.
Who all share a feast day on, I think it's October 25th.
Yes.
So.
She has multiple days that she's remembered. She's a patron for businesswomen, converts, martyrs, and a group called the Catholic Women's League.
Nice.
All right. So, what do we know about her family?
Well, she was one of 5 kids, and I couldn't get, what order she was in.
Sure.
Just that there was 5 of them.
So there's 5, and she's one of them.
Yep. And her father was a chandler.
Nice. We like candles.
Unfortunately, he died when she was 14.
Oh.
And she then got married to a man named John, who was a butcher and apparently about twice her age, but it actually did seem to be a, good relationship. They loved and respected each other.
That's good.
In fact, she converted after she got married, about 3 years afterwards, even though her husband was still part of the official Church of England.
That must have caused a little bit of the old domestic strife.
It did not appear to be too much because her brother-in-law was a Catholic priest.
Good old Butcher John.
And John even went and paid the fines for her for skipping out on the services in the Church of England. But it still resulted in her ending up in jail about 3 times during her life.
Sure. But John Clitherow seems like a solid chap.
And it was a rough time to be a Catholic in England.
Again, there were fines for not going to church.
Well, not going to their church.
Yeah, not going to the official church.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plus, every now and again, you get dragged in front of the assizes and whatnot.
And you also had, people having to hide Catholic priests.
Well, because at the time, it was actually illegal to be a priest. You didn't even have to do anything. Just being a Catholic priest was illegal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy times.
As was housing them, which is something she did.
Hey.
It was a capital crime according to the Act of Jesuits, etc., from 1584.
Etc., etc., etc. Yes.
I do like that etc. is literally part of the law's name.
Well, listen, we're not
there's
opposed.
Jesuits, and then there's those other ones. I don't know.
We are not opposed to martyring Franciscans and Benedictines, which they also did. But our big problem is Jesuits. The country's just rotten with Jesuits.
You are charged with having violated the criminal law Jesuits, etc. Act,
etc., etc., etc.
Anyway, she was known for hiding priests not only in her own house, but she apparently rented houses elsewhere and would hide them there. And there's even some stories that she might have actually found ways to house them where the authorities were, staying, in the pub that they were hanging out at.
So you
look while you're hiding in this hole in the wall. Make sure you say some prayers for the people who are here.
You're telling me that St. Margaret had a highly developed sense of humor.
Or she just, loved the irony. I don't know. Anyway, so she was able to do this for years until her oldest son ended up moving to Reims in France, because that's where English people went if they wanted to train to be a priest.
There was the English college, and that's why it's the Dewey Reims Bible.
Yes.
Because that's where there was a seminary.
Yeah.
Yes. At which point the authorities start grilling her husband and her about why did your son go, to France?
Why did your son go into that place where they got that Catholic school?
He's spying on them. Yes, that's it.
Only with an English accent as opposed to a Southern accent.
Side note, accents change a great deal over time. What we think of as the English accent didn't really exist back in the 1500s.
That's
so
fair.
we really don't know what accent they spoke with. Yeah. So
I mean, we always pretend like if you're watching Shakespeare, it's super fancy. But if you know what Shakespeare was saying, he was essentially, the best ones were fart jokes and worse.
the groundlings loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the net begins to tighten around the Pearl of York. She's already been arrested several times. Her husband's paid a heck of a lot of fines. And now that her son is in the seminary, the authorities are watching her like hawks.
I'd be willing to bet they probably weren't just watching her, but actually probably like intruding into her life to find evidence.
Yes. They had been watching her to various levels for some time. But at the point at which the son went to France, they then went and searched the house.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it probably wasn't the first time they searched the house, but they were doing a really thorough job. And apparently they spooked a small child enough that he gave away enough information that they found one of the priest holes that she had in her house.
Well, I mean, it takes real men to frighten a small child. So good on you, English. You should be very proud of yourselves.
Yes, so she was, of course, put in jail because, well, she's the Catholic. So,
Yep.
but she refused to plead because
Like us. We want to make sure that if we're caught, there's no doubt of what our church is.
That's right.
she refused to plead because English law essentially stated you couldn't go to trial until you plead. And if she went to trial, then either all her family members would have to lie or...
We didn't know she was Catholic.
Well, more about what they did too, because she wasn't on her own on this. Or, then
Technically,
they
it's not so much that they
themselves.
technically it's not so much that they were complicit. It's that they were actually
Accomplices.
co-conspirators.
And so there was an English way to make someone plead that, in this case, it didn't seem like they were using it for that. Like, even the quotes from that time was very much that if you're not going to plead, we will use this to kill you. But in other cases in English law, it was a slower process in the hopes that they could get someone to plead.
She was pressed.
We will torture the plea out of you, or we will torture the life out of you.
Yes.
You decide.
Yes. In her case, they took her own house's door to put on her, and then they put the stones on top of that.
Well, so they had a sense of irony too. So, most of us, if we're familiar with being pressed to death, we're aware of the famous incident of Giles Corey, who was pressed to death during the Salem Witch Trials of 1692, because he was caught in a similar situation where either if he pleaded, people would be in trouble, and if he didn't,
if he doesn't plead, they're gonna.
In his case, it was more that if he pleaded, he knew they were going to find him guilty.
Yes.
And if he was found guilty, his kids wouldn't inherit anything.
There we go.
But if they never actually put him to trial, then
they would still
get everything.
Yeah.
Yes, but in her case, it was either they're going to find her guilty and probably kill her, and at the same time, it's going to take down everybody that was even remotely complicit with her, or at least put them in danger, or she could simply let them not find her guilty and kill her, and yeah.
So she ended up getting pressed to death, along with her fourth child because she was pregnant at the time.
Monsters.
On what you probably already knew as feast day for Mary, but also that year was Good Friday.
Oh, well, that's a pretty good time for a Christian to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'll
and
take
in the
that
process of pressing, she actually was laying but not standing up in a very cross-like posture as well. So.
I mean, of all the times I could die, that one, or within the octave of Easter.
You know, to be really conformed to the image of Christ. Mm-hmm. Astonishing.
I didn't put it in here because it was a bit of a long quote, but she has a very good quote about her end of her life, saying essentially that, physically, she is super scared about the fact that she's going to be murdered.
Who wouldn't be?
But spiritually, she's kind of glad she's going to heaven.
You know what I like about that? That's something I can identify with. That kind of honesty.
So she's tied in with that Pauline philosophy of, well, I could live and I could stay here working with you fine folks. Or I could die and I could go to heaven.
At the same time, I'm not going to pretend that the prospect of being crushed to death by rocks isn't terrifying.
Yes, and as we already mentioned, she's part of the 40 martyrs of England and Wales. She's also usually lumped in together in other feast days with the martyrs Anne Line and Margaret Ward, who were other English women martyrs from the time. So,
and at the time, women were extremely important in helping to hide priests, in part because they were, less often suspected than men.
So once again, as we've said in other episodes, for all those of you who think that women are not valued enough by the church, look at the women in the church's history. Women played a pivotal role throughout its history, from day one. Why don't, for this week's comments on this one, comment with the weirdest way someone was martyred.
Ooh.
Because, this is not the weirdest, but...
No, but it's a hell of a way to die.
There's a lot of interesting ones.
Give this episode a like, subscribe to our channel, ring the church bell to be notified the next time a plot is uploaded. And, until that next time...
remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love. Alleluia, alleluia. I like Saint Apollonia, but... yeah. They knocked out all of her teeth, so now she's the patron saint of dentistry.
Yes, the ironic...
take that one.
Patronages are fun.